Everyone talks about starting a draft. Some people talk about finishing, but nobody talks about the middle, the part where you're not excited anymore, you're not close to done, and every word feels like pushing a rock uphill. That's where we lose people. Let's talk about why. This video is about what happens emotionally around the 30 to 50% mark of a project and why it feels so unbearable. By the end, you're going to understand something about the middle that most writers never figure out, and it will change everything about how you move through it. Welcome, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Daniel, and this is The Story Renaissance. If you've ever abandoned a draft halfway through, if you've ever felt excited at the start, you wished you'd finish this time, and then just stopped around page 80, this is for you. Because most of us think that the middle is where we fail, where the project falls apart, and where we finally prove we're not real writers. But what if the middle isn't the problem? What if the middle is just doing what the middle does, and we just don't see it coming? Here's what nobody tells you about the middle of a draft. It doesn't feel like productive struggle. It doesn't feel like we're working through something that's going to pay off. It feels boring. It feels pointless, like we're writing in circles and nothing matters, and maybe this whole idea was stupid to begin with. I remember when I was about 40% into my last writing project, and I can tell you exactly what it felt like. I'd opened the document, read the last paragraph I wrote, and I had no idea what I was trying to say. The characters felt flat, the plot felt predictable. Every sentence I added felt like I was just making it worse. That's the middle. And here's the thing, that feeling, it's not feedback. It's not the project telling you it's broken. It's just what the middle feels like. But why does it feel this way? What is it about the middle that makes everything fall apart? Quick aside, if you're stuck in that middle fog right now and you don't want to do it alone anymore, I run a community for writers called The Story Renaissance. We write together every week and talk through exactly this kind of thing. The link's in the description below. All right, back to it. The beginning of a project feels good for a very specific reason. You're operating on potential. You haven't written enough yet to mess it up. The idea still lives in your head as this perfect, shimmering thing. You're just translating it to the page. And every sentence feels like progress because you're building something from nothing. But by the time you hit the middle, that's gone. You've written enough that the gap between what's in your head and what's on the page is now visible. You can see where you took a wrong turn. You can see where the dialogue falls flat. You can see that this character you thought was compelling is actually just a bundle of tics and cliches. And worse, the end isn't close enough to pull you forward yet. At the beginning, you could feel the momentum. You were starting something. At the end, you can feel the finish line. You're almost there. But in the middle, you're just here, stuck, with miles to go and no excitement left to carry you. That's why the middle kills more drafts than anything else. So what actually happens in the middle that makes it feel so unbearable? I think there are three distinct emotional stages to the middle, and most of us cycle through them over and over until we either push through or quit. Stage 1, doubt. This is where you start questioning if the idea was ever good. You read what you've written and think, would I actually want to read this? The answer feels like no. So you start wondering if you should pivot, maybe add a subplot, maybe change the POV, maybe start over entirely. Stage 2, boredom. This is worse than doubt. Doubt at least has energy. You're questioning, you're considering options. Boredom is just flatness. You sit down to write and feel nothing. No curiosity, no drive. Just a mechanical act of putting words on a page because you told yourself you would. Stage 3, resistance. This is where you start avoiding the project entirely. You tell yourself you'll write later. You open the document and close it 5 minutes later. You suddenly have a bunch of other things that need to get done first. The project just sits there, unfinished, while you feel guilty about not working on it, but also can't bring yourself to touch it. Most writers think this cycle means the project is dead, that if you're feeling this way, it's time to move on. But here's what I've learned. Every project goes through this, even the ones you finish. The only difference is whether you know it's coming, which brings me to the thing I wish somebody had told me years ago. The middle's not broken. You're not broken. The project's not broken. The middle is just the part where you don't have clarity yet. At the beginning, you have the concept. At the end, you have the shape of the whole thing. But in the middle, you're still figuring out what this draft actually is. And that ambiguity, that not knowing, feels terrible. Because we want writing to feel like following a map. We want to know where we're going and how to get there. But the middle doesn't work like that. The middle is where you're building the map. You're discovering the story by writing it. And the discovery is messy and slow and full of dead ends. It doesn't feel productive because you can't see the progress yet. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. But here's the shift I needed to make to actually get through the middle. Here's what I want you to understand. The middle isn't where bad projects go to die. It's where every project has to go to become real. The beginning is easy because it's all potential. The end is satisfying because it's all resolution. But the middle is where you actually make the thing. It's where the vague idea in your head becomes concrete words on a page. It's where you figure out what the story is actually about. It's where you discover the character's real motivation, the theme you didn't know you were writing toward, the structure that finally clicks into place. But you can't discover any of that without staying in the ambiguity long enough to find it. And that's why the middle feels so hard. Not because you're failing, but because you're finally doing the actual work. The beginning is setup. The end is payoff. The middle is writing. And if you can normalize that, if you expect the middle to feel boring and pointless, like you're going nowhere, then it stops feeling like a crisis. It just becomes the part you have to move through to get to the end. You don't need to love the middle. You don't need to feel inspired by it. You just need to trust that staying with it is how you finish. If you're in the middle of something right now and it feels like drowning, if you're tired of abandoning projects at the 40% mark and starting over with something new, I built a space for exactly that. It's called the Story Renaissance. It's a community for writers who want to actually finish work instead of endlessly restarting. We have a weekly Write Together stream where you can just show up and work alongside other people who are in their own messy middles. And we talk about this stuff, about doubt, about boredom, about how to keep going when the excitement is gone. No courses, no gurus, just structure, presence, and people who get it. There's a 7-day free trial. The link's in the description and the pinned comment below. I'd love to have you there. So here's what I want you to take from this. The middle is supposed to feel hard. That's not a bug. That's not you failing. That's just a part where the work happens. And if you can stop treating the middle like a crisis and start treating it like a stage, something you move through, not something you fix, you'll finish more than you ever thought you could. Now that you understand this, the next video you need to watch is this one I made about why you don't need permission to call yourself a writer. Because once you accepted that the middle is part of the process, you need to give yourself permission to be in it. To be a writer, even when it feels hard. That video builds directly on what we just talked about. I'll see you there.